The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to ForeverFAB, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD, as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
Welcome to ForeverFAB, the podcast dedicated to fashion, the art of living well, and all things beauty. I'm your host, Dr. Shirley Madhere, your purveyor of this definitive source of living a beautiful and fabulous life. This week's episode is dedicated to boldness. Believe it, conceive it, achieve it. How to lead a disruption with style. I know, right? Until I had to change the topic. I think that's it. This is my interview with Candice Cook Simmons, Esquire. So, Candice Cook Simmons is a lawyer, a published writer, a noted philanthropist, and a business strategist. She's in technology, entertainment, and also in the corporate sectors. She's a managing director at her own law firm that she founded, and she's also a wife and a mother. Candice has been honored as a Pearl honoree in 2009, selected as a finalist for Atlanta's Power 30 Under 30. She still looks like she's under 20, and a winner of the Celebration Award in Law in 2012. In 2013, she was selected as the Hollywood Power Player by Hollywood and Vine magazine, and in 2014, she was selected for the Barrier Breaker Award. She has also appeared in the American Bar Association Journal, the O Magazine, Elle Magazine, The Today Show, and Sirius Radio. Welcome, Candice.
Thank you for having me.
What a list of accolades. Power Player.
Oh, my goodness. And when I hear those dates, boy, wow.
It's quite all right. So let's get a little academic for a bit before we get into the mushy stuff. So what motivated you to go into law?
I honestly think media played a role in my deciding to go into law. I was pre-med for quite some time.
What?
I was pre-med. I got into a Johns Hopkins program.
What?
I was
I
in biology. That was my whole thing.
Good for you.
And I had a teacher in college. When I originally said I wanted to be a lawyer, I was in elementary school.
Wow.
And I was inspired by Claire Huxtable.
Yeah.
And I said, Mom, I want to be a lawyer. And my mom said, no, I don't want you to be a lawyer. There are a lot of lawyers in the world, and you need to have a career where you'll be in demand. And careers are about supply and demand. There are too many lawyers in the world. Pick something else. You should be a chemical engineer.
Oh, my God.
And so that was what she redirected. I did math and science programs on Saturday mornings.
Wow.
I went to space camp, all because she was like, no, the statistics say, my mom studied statistics. That was her business. Her PhD was behind it.
Wow.
You need to be in a career where there are fewer women in the field, and there are plenty of women who are lawyers. You're going to be a chemical engineer. And then we got in college to, what is it? Organic chemistry.
Oh, my love.
We got into organic chemistry, and I was sitting around making models.
Making the models.
And then
that's
in
right.
my government classes, the teachers were like, I really feel like this is your calling. Why are you...
Meaning the government classes.
In the government classes, in the political science classes. And they said, why in the world
are you studying organic chemistry?
Putting
those red balls on those white sticks.
Yes, and the blue. And my high school was a math and science magnet. And we were known for winning science fairs.
Yes.
And so all of our summers were spent doing science research. That was a part of it.
Yes.
So long story short, it really was just a matter of me in college saying, I just don't want to do that anymore.
Good for you.
And it was amazing because my summers were spent also getting accepted into those programs.
Oh, my gosh.
And my mom just thought, well, what did we do all of this for? And it was for exposure.
Yes.
And so I switched. And from that moment on, my dad's, his idea was, it's your career. Why are you... Like, we don't care what you do. Right. You're just going to do something.
Right.
And so that was the switch. Great professors. And also me realizing that I wasn't called holistically. And so there were components that I really cared about.
Yes, in the sciences.
And my mom got on board because that was when HMOs were starting to come into play.
Oh.
And the field that I wanted to go into was the one that was being most affected early
by
on.
HMOs, yeah.
And so she said, you know what about that?
Yeah.
If you decide to pivot,
Yes.
I actually think that this
It would
would
work
make
out
sense
well.
based on the practice area I was interested in going in. And it was all so new back then.
She was so right.
And so that's what it was, really just a circuitous route
That was a
of
good
trial
route.
and error. And
Yes.
that's what led me here.
So, all is not lost because you are, from what I read, quite scientific and strategic in your work. So, using everything that you've been exposed to and how you learned, why did you choose business law and entertainment law?
I really have had a circuitous route. I didn't originally. I started out as a corporate litigator.
Okay.
I did corporate litigation from 2003 to 2010.
Wow.
And that was what I'd seen, right?
Mm-hmm.
And truth be told, look, I went to the firm where I started because it was the highest paying firm in the country at that time, absent bonuses.
Yes.
And I really didn't know any better. Like, this was me crafting my own way. And so I just went to what made sense and what served the life I thought I wanted to live.
Yes.
And so I went there. And there are some amazing things that I learned. I would not be where I am today, but for the experience and optically being able to see the things I was able to see so early on. I really think that it served, for better or for worse.
Yes.
It served me well.
Yes.
And that was what I'd seen on the practice, even if that was criminal law or on television. You see litigators. You're not
Law and
seeing
Order.
transactional. Yeah, you are seeing that. It's all sped up. There's no discovery. I mean, the reality of how boring it can truly be in terms of writing is never reflected. But it was an experience. And when I left to do essentially, just when I knew I wasn't going to do that anymore, it became a situation where what did I feel called to do? And I'd always wanted to do intellectual property at a greater scale.
Okay.
I had a book of business already.
Yes.
I had a lot of friends who had previously been in entertainment. And the reason I'd shied away from entertainment early on was because I thought it was a stereotypical field. When you were around attorneys of color, more often than not, their response was, oh, I practice entertainment law.
Okay.
And so I just didn't want to do that. It seemed so predictable, and that was just not a niche that I wanted to be. But then I looked and it was like I'm staring a gift horse in the face. I have an abundance of connections who can afford a great lawyer, who trust me, and I can do a better job than the people they are being forced to work with because I keep saying that's not what I do.
Right.
And so I just shifted. And there was a lot of trust. There was a lot of
Between you and your clients.
Definitely between me and my clients. And also just over preparation because I did not want to fail.
Oh, of course not.
And so that's
that
shift.
pre-med in you.
It is. It is. And it's also, I like winning. And so I was not going to set myself up to just fall completely down. I mean, I think failure is an inevitable part of life, but I don't want my failure to ever be because I wasn't prepared. Like there can be a million reasons why things don't work out. That can't be my contribution to that end game. So it was seeing life, seeing what I was really good at, seeing what came naturally, and then what could be complemented by my skill set. And it landed squarely in the face of entertainment, tech, and business, and with a sweet spot for intellectual property. It just landed there, and it served us well.
So that was very scientific. You call it circuitous, but sounds very scientific to me. Observations, theories, proving things, ending up. It all worked. It all worked out. So you mentioned IP, intellectual property. I've always wanted to know what really is the difference between intellectual property and a trademark?
So a trademark is a type of intellectual property.
Okay.
So there isn't a difference. It's just a trademark makes it really specific.
Okay.
And so under this umbrella of intellectual property, you have patents, you have trademarks, you have trade secrets. And all of those things really do give license and protection to businesses in a variety of different ways. And so this microphone had a patent in terms of how it works, the name of it or the tagline that goes with it, L'Oreal, because you're worth it. That's something that gets trademark protection.
Got it.
The utility of something can affect whether or not it gets a patent. Coca-Cola has a great trade secret. So essentially, if you want something to be protected with a trade secret, you never disclose, right? It's always, you make it a part of your organization's fiber that everyone doesn't get access to how this is done. And then that's what's protected. So there isn't really there is a difference in that a trademark is very specific, but it's all under the umbrella of intellectual property.
Yes. So you decided to start your own practice. What was the sort of defining moment that you said, yeah, I work for this incredible, law firm. I'm getting paid very well. I love what I do. But what was that moment for you?
There were several. The first was, and again, I mean, this whole interview, I'm really aging myself. I can hear the numbers and the dates, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And
you don't have to mention dates if you don't want to.
And this will really set the tone. So I remember a person that I worked for, a name partner actually, would take associates to get shoe shines. So you would go and get your shoes shined right down the street. Yeah. And I remember talking to him, and we started discussing our social media policy.
Okay.
And
meaning the law firm's social media policy. Yes.
And how employees were going to be able to use social media. Okay. And what was hot and new at the time was Twitter.
Okay.
And so it was our attorneys going to be allowed to use Twitter. And I remember him saying, what is that? And which is fair because he wasn't in that world. Neither was I. I mean, I was late to even having this conversation, essentially, when you think about when you would want employees to be paying attention.
Yes.
But I remember thinking, this is a telling moment for me because what I want from my career is really to have more of a Wayne Gretzky trajectory. Yep. And that is looking at where things are going and not where they are. And litigation is very much so built on precedent and how things have been done historically. Yes. And the career I want to build is based off of what are we going to do? How are we planning ahead? What does the future look like in terms of business and law? And is the model that we're operating off of really one that's going to work? I don't think it is. I think a lot of traditional firms have antiquated ways of handling clients and business and scaling and don't see things. They don't have business development. I give and provide more referrals than most people would be able to ever provide to me because they don't have that panel and pool of diverse contacts. Right. And that's intrinsic on those organizations. They could definitely work on it, but that's a spot you have to look at wanting to cure. And my firm had overhead. We had the Plain and the Fifth Avenue office and then one on Lex and all of and so many top firms do. And that accoutrement makes it it's hard to shift the Titanic. Oh, yeah. And so the glacier is coming. We see it, but we're going to have to sink because we cannot pivot fast enough. I see. And I knew that so many things were changing and the beauty of things changing when there's no established way of doing things is there's no real learning curve because no one's in control yet. Yep. And if we get off and we get in charge of it now, who else is going to be able to say that historically have the old way of doing things, but also can now adapt to the new way. And I felt like I was in a very special position to be able to do it, but we need to leave now because at this point, and so many things worked in my favor. The market was crazy. No one's going to be sad to see you go when the world is falling apart. Like it was just, I mean, people are sad to see you go, but it's a different conversation. And that was my second time. I started in Texas and then moved to New York. And so we had, for a variety of reasons, had said goodbye twice. Wow. And this was a permanent goodbye. Yes. And it was just the right thing to do. And so then I did a sabbatical at a program at Stanford and cross the T's and dot the I's. It was a business program through their Graduate School of Business for entrepreneurs. So it was a very accelerated, quick program to address very specific
entrepreneurial issues.
Yeah. And so I went there and then I came back and
you were ready to go.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that story. I love that you pivoted, but not just pivoted in one direction, but you were in so many different directions. And you were open. You were open to the flow. You knew yourself well, though. I mean, you knew what you were good at. You knew what you loved, and you paid attention to that. Because sometimes people know themselves or they know what they love, but they don't necessarily pay attention because they put other things as a priority and maybe they just ignore what they really love and who they really are. So I'm glad you figured it out because the world needs you.
Thank you.
So what's a common myth about lawyers and how can you debunk it? I love this question.
Oh my goodness. What is a common myth about lawyers? I mean, so many of those myths have a modicum of truth to them.
Name one. I mean, anyone, whether it's the commercials on TV or...
I mean, I think those commercials are pretty fair. I think the litigation side, I really think is a myth. There is this, television really creates these.
I'm a Law and Order junkie.
And what it fails to do is reflect how long these cases take. Yes. And so litigation is really, it's not a war of the courtroom. It's a war of briefs and motions. Most litigators, this is a myth. If someone sees a child or hears a person and the person is either articulate, talkative, or likes to argue, then their idea is, oh my gosh, you're going to be a lawyer. Right. Or you'd make a great lawyer. Actually, no, you'd probably make the worst lawyer.
Really?
Lawyers, particularly the law and order style lawyers, their jobs are primarily research and writing. And it's not just open research. It's
not all the dramatics in the courtroom.
No, it's none of that. And so that's the myth. The myth is really the person who's steadfast, nose to the grindstone, enjoys almost exclusively writing, researching, and going through documents because litigation is strictly it's basically doc review.
Yes.
And so which AI I'm sure will change, and that's going to change your young lawyers. I don't know what they're going to be doing, but that's the difference. I think the myth is that it's a lot more not even glamorous, because some of it is glamorous, but the glamorous part isn't the stuff that's happening in the office. It's what the office allows you to do outside of the office. Understood. That part can be glamorous, but no, that's the myth. The myth is that we found a secret case. No, if you found a secret case, they probably found it too. You both have access to the same research. And you have to disclose. You can't hide documents. You have to share them. So I think that's the part. That's the myth that should be debunked.
You mentioned young lawyers. Is there anything that you would advise in terms of resources? Were there any resources that were helpful to you along your journey?
Truthfully, not that I can recall, but it's been, 2000 to 2003 was when, so it's been almost 20 years, so it's hard to say.
Can you imagine?
But I can say I feel that there should be fewer lawyers. I think the biggest disservice we do, becoming an attorney really can sometimes be a great fallback career for people. And I say great sarcastically. Their parents want something to talk about at a cocktail party. They don't know what they're going to do. Law school seems like a great way to spend 3 years. And it's a very expensive figure it out strategy. I really encourage people to work first for 2 years the same way most business schools ask their students to have a business background before, so that people really can appreciate what it is they want to do. And also, how are you going to be of service to other people? There are, if we were going to talk about what we need right now, truth be told, we need some really fantastic attorneys in the Justice Department. We have a dearth there. We need some fantastic attorneys who are working with racists right now to help represent 3-year-olds who are being asked to represent themselves in asylum cases here in the United States. So we need more ACLU attorneys. There is a need for people who feel passionate about a purpose and a cause to use their skill set for the greater good. And we need to have a system where they can go to top schools or in fantastic schools and get great training and do that without going broke. Those things are true. But maybe the best place for so many of the people who are figuring it out is Wall Street. Or maybe the best place is a kindergarten classroom. Or maybe they really want to go to NYU and study filmmaking. Own it as quickly as you can because life is so fleeting.
And make your statement, make your contribution.
And do it in a way that serves both you and the world. And none of us are served by people who become lawyers because they think it sounds like a good thing to do.
Yeah, that's true. What do you wish you had known when you started out?
That I should have done all of those things. If I had known, I think I would have changed what I studied in school. I would have taken advantage. And what's crazy is I did very well in school and I thought I was taking advantage of things, but then I look and perspective is just, it's just one of those things where I could have done even more. I did a lot, but there was more that could have been done. So if I knew then what I know now, oh my goodness, I probably would have made sure I studied 2 languages hardcore instead of just one. I would have lived abroad for longer than I did. I shortened all of those things because I thought a little bit was enough. And in hindsight, is it ever enough? I would have loved to have done that. And so that's probably what I would have done significantly differently in hindsight. I'm very happy with where I am. So too many switches and we don't land in the same place. But those are things that I took for granted. And,
Nobody ever really told us, right?
No,
Yeah.
it was I did the best I could with the
Of course.
information that I had.
Of course.
But with the knowledge that I have now,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, goodness.
I know. The world
Yeah,
is your oyster, and you would have taken advantage.
I would have killed it in those ways.
I agree with you. I think I've done a lot.
Right.
I've traveled. I've learned a couple of languages. But now when I read some of these, admissions for college and see what young people are doing, I'm like, oh my gosh, I did not do enough.
No, I know.
But you're right. It's probably never enough.
No.
But I see you as someone with a tremendous skill set. You are dynamic. You are vivacious. You are intelligent. You're very thoughtful. You're very generous. I mean, I can go on and on and on. But in terms personally, do you believe, and I'm sure you do, but what do you think are the specific sort of personality traits or skill sets that led you to become so successful? Because you really are. It's incredible what you're accomplishing and what you're doing.
Well, first, thank you.
You're welcome.
We really needed my parents watching this right now.
They can subscribe to the podcast and
Yes,
they can listen anytime.
That is, they will be doing that, and we will
Forever
have,
Fab podcast.
we're going to have to guide them on that one. They are the ones who are like, "Does it work on my flip phone, honey?" So, I honestly think I used to be of the mindset that great things happen to good people, but I truly believe, look, great things happen to bad people too. So the universe is generous in its abundance, and it is an equal opportunity supplier.
Right. And bad people know how to manifest too.
And they surely do. And someone said this, and I could not agree more. They were like, the devil looks out for his kids too.
Wow.
Like, this is not.
I've never heard that.
We do not have a utopia about, or not even a utopia. We don't have a monopoly on, generous giving. Fallen angels help out too. So I truly believe that the second you realize that you are comfortable with the boundaries that you set, whatever those boundaries are, you're able to create safe spaces, and you can operate within those spaces. And everything that happens outside, even if they affect you, it's a byproduct, and it never controls that much of the mindset. I can hear the most bizarre, crazy things, and I will know, I'm not going to get into it. My time is too valuable.
Right.
Like, that sounds unfortunate.
Right.
But I'm not navigating all my children episodes at this stage of life. And what it does is it just frees you up.
Yes, it does.
And the only people who really have issues with boundaries are the ones who are not benefiting from you placing them. And so my role is not to satisfy everybody else's demands. And so and I have people who work really hard and are amazing human beings around me.
Yes, so important.
And they are inspiring. I am inspired by my mentees. Yeah. They actually are just dynamic. So I had great mentors, but then I have mentees who came through and showed me, oh my goodness, I thought I was doing it. And they are coming in and they have just changed the game.
It, right?
And that just made it such that I just couldn't take anything for granted. Yes. And even when I'm griping, and I do gripe.
We all do.
If you saw I was moving bricks around my house today, that is not where I wanted to be in my morning hour.
Right.
But when I was doing it, there are just so many blessings within every complaint.
Yes,
so I'm
course.
like, I'm moving bricks for my backyard to get work done. Like, I have a house.
Right.
I may complain about old architecture, but you know what? It's here.
Yeah.
And I'm
It's
safe.
true.
And so there are so many things that I feel fortunate about.
Yes.
That I keep my eye on those things. And then I recognize if I don't have something that I want, I didn't realize this, but I do create boards. They're not all vision boards, but they're word boards. And those things happen. And so when I find that I am not getting something that I truly want, I have to take stock. Well, I take stock of why. Because I pretty much, historically, I do achieve what I want. Now, it doesn't happen on my time frame. And it doesn't always look the way. I am doing exactly what I said I wanted to do in 2003.
Wow.
If you had told me in 2003
that you would be here,
I would have said, well, then why am I a litigator? I am a corporate litigator who's moving to Texas. I mean, there were just so many things. When I want it, I work for it and it happens.
Yes.
And so
That's
if
a good
I'm
formula.
saying I really want something and yet I'm not seeing it,
Yeah.
typically I'm not doing everything I can to get it. It doesn't mean I'm going to snap my fingers and it's going to come.
Right.
But normally I can see there's a difference between motion and moving forward.
Yes.
And I will find out when I am just doing motion and then mentally patting myself on the back, but I'm actually not moving forward. And I try and focus on that. What have I done to move and advance this ball forward? Even if it's in inches, I'll take it because games are won in inches. But if I'm just running in place and then saying, look how hard I'm sweating.
Yeah.
Yay, I'm running. But I'm not trying to advance it forward.
Right.
Then I have to take a moment and I either remove it from the list and say,
Yeah.
if you really wanted it, you'd be working on it. You're
Right.
not working on it.
Right.
Take it off because
Yeah.
it's somebody else's goal. They're going to work hard
Not
for
yours.
it. Release it. Or I'll double down and say, but I don't want to release it.
Yeah.
This is actually my goal too.
Yes.
Let's sit down and
Get it
let's
done.
do it.
Yeah.
And so and even, look, I can watch everybody else get it and
Right.
be like, go team. But
Yeah.
all that does is mentally,
Right.
it reminds me it can be done.
Yes.
Like, yes, do it so
Right.
that I can be reminded,
it
okay, I'm
can
not
be
wasting
done.
my time. And that's kind of what I do.
I love that formula. You said a couple of things. One was about establishing boundaries, which I must admit sometimes I have a hard time doing. So you pretty much co-create or create your circumstances or your life by establishing boundaries. Because if you're kind of letting everyone in and everything happen, then the things that happen to you, with you, about you were sort of the result of something you created by not establishing proper boundaries. I love that. And then you also said something about that motion does not equal moving forward. Yeah. And when you realize that something on your list or on your word board does not come true, it's because maybe you really didn't want it, or you weren't working on it, or I may add that there wasn't alignment.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'm trying to wrap my head around that, about the whole concept of alignment. You say you want something and you're working really hard for it, and yet it's not exactly happening. Reassess. Is there truly alignment? What are you doing it for and why?
Yes.
So I love those. But back to the word board. Do you have a favorite word?
I don't have a favorite word, but I will write out all the goals.
Okay. So
So it's really, there
you're
will
a
be
goalkeeper.
list. I'm a goalkeeper. I really am. That's what I do. I will write the list and I will take pictures of them if they're on a whiteboard at the office, and I'll look and then I check. And if a lot of time has passed and I've done nothing, then I really do look and see why. And I did do vision boards. I did not realize this until yesterday. I actually was editing.
Yes.
And I saw these vision boards and I was checking them off. And I thought, well, first, I didn't even know I did vision boards. I'm pretty sure I told someone that I don't do them. And now I see that I did.
Yeah.
And it's all in God's time, because none of it was from 1 year to the next. And yay, this vision board was complete.
Yeah.
But it was a good 3 years time.
Yeah.
And those things, I was just deleting them.
Right.
Because they were all finished.
Unbelievable.
And so note to self, hold myself accountable more.
You hold yourself accountable. Yeah.
It was important.
I used to do vision boards when I was much younger, and I stopped doing them because I thought, it's not working. I've given this a year, it's not working. So I abandoned the vision board. But my mom recently reminded me, she's in town visiting from Scottsdale. She recently reminded me, I was cleaning up your old room and I found one of your vision boards. And I was like, oh boy, I couldn't remember what I had on it. And she said, and I have to tell you, a lot of what's on that board is now true. It gave me chills.
I love it.
Was that crazy?
It's manifesting.
Down to little details. I thought, oh my gosh, crazy. And I always thought, I don't know how to manifest. But to your point, all in a higher power's time.
When we do what we are supposed to do, and we are living the life where we're living out our real purpose, the universe has a way of granting your return on investment.
I believe that. I really do. So you don't have one favorite word. Do you have a favorite curse word if you curse?
I am ashamed to say, yes, I do curse.
I've heard you.
And if I have not cursed in a while, what's so bizarre is that it all comes out as if I've been holding it in. And so
it's like a litany, right?
It really is shameful. And then people who are like, I didn't know you spoke that way, are traumatized because it really is like the floodgates are open. I tell you, I don't have a favorite curse word. I use them all with the appropriate
Equal
level of
opportunity
venom.
cursor.
Absolutely. But I probably, it depends on the circumstance.
Understood.
They are all capable of being used when necessary.
As verbal daggers.
Yes, they are. And most of the time, it's not towards an individual. It's about a circumstance. So they are all circumstantial. It is, but nothing drives me to it like being underground in New York on a train.
On a
like that is
subway. Oh my
just-
gosh.
You want to bring it out. That's
I
it.
know.
But yeah, no, I use a couple.
Okay.
I use a couple.
Okay, I won't ask you specifically what they
They're
are.
at the early start of
Okay.
not even A. So
Right.
moving from B
Yeah.
to G,
Yeah.
we pretty much get it covered.
Oh,
B
goodness.
to G
B to
wraps
G.
me up.
That's
yeah,
right. It wraps you up.
that's
It
my
keeps
thing.
you whole. So, what sound or noise do you love, or do you prefer total silence? At times, obviously.
Yes, the ocean.
Yeah.
The sound
It's
of
cathartic,
the ocean. It really
right?
is. It really is. And my son's laughter.
Oh,
My son's laughter is my favorite sound.
that's beautiful.
It is the best sound if I could bottle it.
And he's a cutie patootie.
Bless you.
delicious,
He brings
right?
me just so much joy. His laughter really
Yeah.
is. I'm like, we should be selling this. You sound like it's in a toy. He's like Elmo.
Right?
It's the best. Yes.
But wait a minute, wasn't there an early album with Jay-Z and Beyonce where they recorded
Blue
Ivy's
Yes.
laughter or something?
Yes.
You could do the same.
We probably will.
I think you could do it.
Harry, get ready.
Get ready. Other than your own profession, what profession would you like to attempt if you had an opportunity?
Oh, I think at some point I'd like to be a showrunner.
Oh, and what does that entail exactly?
So I mean, and this is honestly, I know for a fact this has got to be the most grating thing
Yes.
someone who actually is in the industry can
Yeah.
hear, because it's
Yeah.
really like someone walking in and saying, and I think I want to be a Supreme Court justice and sitting down. I think I want to be a brain surgeon. Like, how hard can it be? I want to be a plastic surgeon.
do
I
it
can
all.
do that. No, we cannot. I cannot do those things. But I believe that there are some narratives and some stories that need to be told.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that I could work in conjunction and in collaboration with people who know a lot more about it than I do.
Yes.
Would I be the showrunner originally? No. But I think for a small series,
Yes.
I would want someone who knows how to work a writer's room working with me.
Yeah.
And I would want the team to feel comfortable. But no, absolutely. It really entails the development, the execution, and the ideation of, for me, it would be scripted programming.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely it's in someone's pipeline. If it's not this lifetime, it'll be the next one. But I definitely see it. I am inspired and excited
Yep.
by the stories that are being told right now with Lena
Yes.
Waithe, with what Shonda Rhimes has done with ABC.
Absolutely.
And I know that the reason there's a dearth of showrunners is because we haven't had enough women and women of color who were working through those more traditional pipelines. I would definitely need to work again in collaboration with someone, but I do believe that I run a business.
Yes.
Like I can lay track with
Yeah.
the train coming.
Right.
And so, as Shonda Rhimes put in her book. And so, let's do it. And I
do it.
believe that there are some vantage points and viewpoints and stories that have a very unique perspective.
Yes.
And that perspective I've lived.
Yes.
And I would like to see that on screen. I think we should do it the honor of seeing that on screen.
But I think you are doing it in your lifetime. You launched a media company, Namaskar.
Yes, we did.
You did that with the co-founder of Venmo. So tell me about that and tell me what you want to contribute on this with this platform.
Yes, so it's so interesting. So when we originally came together, we just knew we wanted to work together.
Yeah.
That was really sort of what,
And that's powerful.
It
You
was-
just know, but not what exactly, but you just know.
and so we started with documentary films.
Yes.
That was the point. And then we wanted to see how we could have the greatest impact.
Yeah.
And so Namaskar was honestly put on a brief hiatus because I was doing a lot of panels where I was talking about access to capital for underrepresented founders.
Yes.
And I mean, I did one with We and Black Women Raised and
Yes.
Forbes and NBC Universal. And they're really powerful panels. But we got to a point where I said, I can't sit on another panel if I'm not offering a solution. If I'm not saying I'm going to cut a check or I'm
Yeah.
going to put you with someone who's going to cut a check.
Yes.
We know there is a problem. Where are the solutions?
That's true.
And so Ikram and I said, all right, well, let's do this. Let's create an early seed stage investment platform. We have some of the best founders.
Yes.
He's exited. I mean, Venmo
Yeah.
did what it needed to do.
Right.
And so let's do this together. And simultaneously, he created a product called INTS. And INTS is a word-based platform.
Right.
And so we're Word Ventures but WRD, because when you hear something, and our idea was when you hear a great pitch and you hear a great product, the person pitches, the room is silent, and you look at each other and you're kind of like, word, that was amazing. And so that was, and he's into spoken word and not spoken word, the art form, but really the art of creating the next Google, Amazon, that's my language, not his, information, but via audio. And he thinks audio is the next thing. We've already sort of exhausted pictures.
Yes.
And so I'm super passionate about film, but we also wanted to do something together where we both were adding the greatest value, and he agreed to capitalize that interest. And so with Namaskar, it was really documentaries, and several of those documentaries actually got put out in an interesting way, not through what we'd done.
Right. Not through your intentional or deliberate actions.
No, which shocked us greatly, but there were stories, and that's my thing. I don't care who necessarily does everything, as long as what I think is supposed to be out there in the world is getting out there. Yep. And so 2 of the stories that I really felt needed to be out there were done. Were they done with the same lens and viewpoint? No. Have they been done so that they cannot be done again from a different perspective? Absolutely not.
Right.
And very much so, because I know I own the rights to a part of the narrative. So, I mean, I feel at some point we'll utilize that intellectual property.
Yes.
But what I wanted to see reflected, and it was put out through PBS, I felt did a good job. Like, it did what it needed to do.
Yes.
And so now...
For the first time.
And so now what I really want us to do, and what we decided to do, was this. So he's actually in LA doing a deal right now. And we really we took Namaskar, and which means, and that's why, I mean, I still love it. It still has a place with us. It's, the beauty in me sees the beauty in you. And
Very
that's
yogic.
what we wanted our narratives to uplift and inspire and allow people to see themselves in people who don't necessarily look or live like they do.
Yes.
And so that still has its place.
Yeah.
But it just pivoted into Word Ventures, because before people needed to see that imagery, they needed to have some checks.
Yeah.
And we felt like we were in a very good position to be able to strategize around how that access to capital was granted. And so that's where we are right now in 2019.
I love it. I can't wait to see how that blossoms.
Thank you.
Because it sounds really exciting. So I have maybe just one last question about the academic part of your life.
Okay.
And then I'd like to pivot to some less academic stuff, like beyond the suit, deeper than the suit.
Love it.
So what would you say are your most memorable cases, whether as a litigator or in your private practice? What are the ones that taught you the most, or the ones that are most memorable, the ones that people really know you for?
And I'm trying to think, some of the most memorable ones have settled. And so I can't go into them that much.
All right.
So I can think of 3.
Yes.
So the first I represented with a team.
Yes.
A large hospitality chain.
Okay.
And that one taught me the most, because internally you're doing these war rooms. And it really taught me about leadership and what it boiled down to.
War rooms, that's what you call them?
Yes,
like the situation room, but a
that's,
war room.
That's what it's called.
Wow.
And normally it looks just like this, except they're binders.
Yeah.
And the entire team. And so for listeners, imagine being in a very large conference room and everyone is sitting around. Really, it looks just like this. You think a oak table, and you've got whiteboards and videos and people coming in and out, and red wells of binders of information, and the entire team. Yes. And this particular case taught me the most about leadership, because, I mean, this was early on in my career.
Yes.
And I remember something went wrong. I truthfully cannot remember what.
Yes.
But whatever had gone wrong, the person who was leading the team had already addressed it.
Oh.
And he had addressed it with us, and then it got to a different partner. Okay. And he was not there when it had already been addressed. And so he's livid, and he's going through. I mean, and these aren't situations where heads don't roll. No, heads actually roll in real time. You can be sitting across from someone and they will be fired in your face. Like, it was very much so that way. And the leadership was the person who was running the team, essentially diverting by basically making it about parity. We're both the ones who are in charge here.
Yeah.
And I've already addressed it. So any other issue that comes from that issue or that problem is now on me, because I'm leading this team. So if there was a problem, the buck actually stops here because I'm the leader.
Right.
And it was one of those things. We left and we all go back to her. I mean, it was a full meeting. Everyone's kind of just like, I'd rather just eat lead and die. But we go back to our office. And that's the thing, even in the most chaotic times, if you work with good people, regardless of the circumstances, you get what I call bunker mentality. And you all are kind of teaming in together.
Yes.
And so one of my work people came into the room. Incidentally, his wife's birthday is today. He came into the room and he was like, I would fall off a ledge for him.
Wow.
That was ultimate leadership. And I said, I know.
Wow.
And so that case resonated because we were working through Christmas. We won.
Congrats.
I remember that because I was excited. We got robes with our names. We
Yeah,
got a dinner.
wow.
It was like a whole thing. And I was so happy. But
Yes.
I remember also sitting around that same conference room and they asked who was spending time with their family for
Yes.
the holidays. And I realized no one was.
Wow.
Because we had this case.
Right.
And I was ready to say, I'm going home for Christmas. And then it got to my turn and I was like, I'm not going home.
Right.
And I ended up flying my family up.
Oh.
And it was the worst holiday ever. But
you got it done.
we got it done, and I also left, and life is great. But
Yes.
like, I was never going to do that again,
Right.
in that way.
Yes.
And so that was the first one because it taught me about leadership.
Yes.
The second one was, this is pretty recent, and this was a person who really sought a lot of advice about what they should do.
Okay.
Should they
Before coming to you.
before coming to me?
Okay.
And they were advised by really well-meaning and well-intentioned human beings
Yes.
that smaller entities never win against large entities.
Oh, it's another myth.
Another myth.
And you debunked it.
Yeah, we did.
Ha! Congrats.
and that person got what they wanted.
Yes.
And I mean, justice was served.
Yes.
And money was paid.
Yes.
And it was critically important because I think, so many high stakes resolutions are never public because that's part of resolving it.
Right.
But things have a way of being amicably resolved
Yes.
if you seek a resolution. And I think we are too prone to tell people it will always be too expensive or too hard or too difficult. And so people roll around showing their bellies like little puppies and not advocating for themselves.
Right.
And we've got to change that. Power structures don't shift. We shift power structures.
Yes.
And so that case was memorable because I remember saying, look, I heard the advice that you got. I vehemently disagree with what you've been told. I know that these larger organizations, you can fight them and win. I know because I've fought them before and I've won before. And no, we don't all go around talking about it, but it happens.
Yes, it's
and
possible.
so that was a reminder because I was happy to see
Yes.
that we prevailed. I mean, that was very recent. It was like last week. And I was also going to be mindful if we didn't. Like, okay, next time I will
You will not
tell,
say that.
Like, maybe David and Goliath are true, but no, like, I can make a slingshot here.
Yeah.
And so that was the second one. And then the third, I've had clients where I felt like it was in their best interest for us to almost be more docile and accept more.
To be the puppy with the belly up.
Yeah, and I liken it to that because I think litigation is chess, not checkers. I do think you need a war chest, but I also think you need to have an emotional bandwidth that a lot of people do not have. You need to be first hurt, then angry.
Yeah.
And then you have to get over it and almost be vested enough to be serious, but not so emotionally vested that you can't focus and can't function in your life because these cases go on forever. And I don't even do litigation anymore.
Right.
In that way, but a lot of clients get involved in that. And so I do negotiate for a living.
Yeah.
And what I realized with this set of clients is they trusted me immensely. We have a great relationship. And I remember when I told them the cost-benefit analysis.
Yes.
I did so really pushing towards,
Yeah.
I just don't think it's worth it.
Right.
And they said, okay, but we trust you. So let's just do it. Like, if we lose, I'd rather lose knowing that we did
tried.
all of the things that you said.
Yes.
And I remember saying, this is a good number. Like,
Yeah.
you've got a number here. And I remember them saying, I think you're better. I think you're better than what they've got. And I don't.
That's amazing.
It was, and it's not that I doubted that I was,
Right.
but it was also like, this is not really about my ego. This is about what's best for you. And
Right.
I don't know if this is best.
Right.
And we ended up, when they said go forward, okay, let's go forward.
Yeah.
And we didn't just win. It shifted so much. It shifted an entire trajectory. Things would have been the difference in life for everyone would have been tremendous and felt. Yeah. And instead we got the opposite of that. Wow. And everyone has been able to keep winning because of it. And so those are the cases, like leadership, creating a level of integrity and trust with your clients. Yeah. And then also realizing that the name of the game is advocacy. So we can't walk around. I mean, what shocked me is in some instances, lawyers were the ones who were like, oh my God, it never happens. Really? I read newsletters all day long. My inbox is full of organizations where we're going over these types of cases. We cannot keep telling people that they
it doesn't
can't
happen.
Win, or they will always be afraid. And then wrongdoing will consistently occur.
I agree.
Step up. Yeah. And so those are the 3 cases.
Those are quite memorable. Amazing. And more to come. You've been listening to my interview with Candice Cook Simmons, Esquire. Believe it, conceive it, achieve it. How to lead a disruption with style. Please come back for part 2.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty, curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD. Live beautifully and help make the world a more beautiful place.